If you've watched any of my crafting videos that I've made in the past couple years, you've probably seen this thing. This probably gets used more than anything else in my studio. I use this to filter out particulates. Whenever I'm sanding projects or resin, or I'm working with anything that puts off fumes, I have this thing on nearby, and it kind of works as a catch-all vent system. The term is a quad filter fan. It's pretty much just 4 filters with a fan on top. It's a really simple thing, but it works really well. Almost every time I'm drying anything, I will set it on top of here, and that just greatly speeds up the drying process. And then if there's any dust or anything that's still coming off of it, it's just gonna go right into the filter fan. I have some baking sheets that I sit on top of this, and that way whatever I sit on this isn't going to be directly on top of the fan. Kind of helps with the airflow. And you also probably noticed that I have a mesh on here, and that's to catch any of the finer things that might fall off so they don't go into the fan. This fan is not attached in any way. It literally just sits on here. Yeah, you can see these filters are super dirty. That's all the dust from all the sanding that I've done for various projects. Yeah, it's definitely time to get some fresh filters on this thing. I'll quickly talk about the actual filters that I use. This was the first one of these I've ever built. This is a MERV 14 filter, which is on the higher end as far as filters go. For the new one, I'm going to be using a MERV 12 filter. They're a little cheaper. They won't filter out quite as much, but if you look on the front of these packages, it'll show you what it will filter out, and it's all the way down to bacteria, viruses. For our purposes, smoke, smog particles, pet dander, pollen, mold spores, stuff like that. That's kind of about the size of like particulates from sanding. It does say it will not filter out ultrafine particles, but I think for like the purposes that I use it for, this is going to be good enough. I have another filter fan that I use in another portion of my house, and these are the ones I use. And I think it works just fine. That one's more mainly for like pet dander. Basically, each filter has a rating, and the higher up the rating, the more expensive it's going to be. And I think that this is probably the best budget option. If you want a nicer filter though, you could go for the MERV 14. I don't think I would go much higher than that. If you get these at like Lowe's or Home Depot, they'll usually do like a bulk discount if you get 4 of them, which is what I've been doing. I need 4 for this anyway, so it's kind of convenient. So yeah, let's get to it. For this particular setup, I'm using 20 by 25 by 1 inch filters. That is a good size for my purposes. But if you want to use a different sized fan for this, just use filters that fit that size. So you're going to need a fairly large piece of cardboard for the bottom. I'm going to use this box here. I don't want this hole, so I'm going to cut this whole section off. And then same thing on this side, I'm going to cut these off. Just use that straight edge there. So you want a square piece that's a little bit wider than this would be, because these are going to overlap each other on each side, like this. I'm just going to make a quick score here. And that should be about the right size for the bottom. If you're working with thinner cardboard, you can always double this up, but I think this will be fine. The filters themselves add a lot of support. I'm going to use my hot glue gun for this. I got it on the high setting. Each of these filters is going to have an arrow on it, and that's to tell you which direction the air is supposed to flow. You want the air to be flowing out, so make sure that those are pointing out on each one. We'll start in the back here. Just put a line on there and stick it on. And that should hold. Get the next one. Make sure the arrow is pointing out. Put a line on the bottom here. Stick it down. Make sure that this edge is lining up. I just burnt myself. Then I'm going to hold the top edge here to make sure that they line up here. And I'm going to just squirt some glue in there. Quickly. Try not to burn myself. Going to stand here for an awkward amount of time while that cools down. Before you assemble the entire thing, go over the inner seam with a second bead of glue. This is easier to do when it's not fully assembled. Same thing on the bottom here. It doesn't need to look pretty. We're going to do this side next. Same thing, I'm going to do the bottom first. Make sure that it's pointing out. Make sure that it lines up. Again, I'm going to push this together. You just want to make sure that there's a good seal on the edges so the air goes through the filters and not out through the edges. That's why we're doing this. Before I go too far, I just want to make sure that this fits. Yeah, it's pretty close. And again, I want to seal these two gaps here. And for the last one, same thing. I'll give that a minute to cool down. Then you're just going to flip it and seal the final side. At that point, you want to make sure everything's cooled down. Go over it and see if there's any spots that came apart, like right here. I see this came apart, so I'm going to have to re-glue that. So I'm going to give the glue gun a minute to get nice and hot, and I'm going to go over that seam again. If it's not dripping, it's not hot enough. Once everything's holding together pretty well, I'll go and do one final pass. It helps to use something with a nice rounded edge to kind of smooth that glue out and push it into the seam. To get the bottom, it might be a little easier to set it down on the floor. It's pretty likely that there's going to be some dust settling on the bottom of this thing, so I take extra care to make sure that the bottom is sealed well. And here it is beside the dirty filter. Quite a difference. So I literally just set the fan on top of here, like I said, and that works just fine. I'm gonna sweep this quick. You know, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. This is just some aluminum screen that I duct taped on here. You could use the nylon screen as well if you have that. That's pretty much it, just a quick video. I think for certain people, this is gonna be really helpful. This is a Lasco Weather Shield fan, by the way, if you're curious. It's 21 inches by 21 inches. And then about 4.5 inches deep. Works great. If you do a lot of crafting and you have the space for something like this, I would suggest making one. I have pretty much used this for every single project since I made it. And like I was saying before, I think it helps a lot with like pet dander, stuff like that. My house doesn't have an HVAC system, so this is an option. I think this works a lot better than an air purifier. Just think of all the surface area that these filters have. It's literally 4 times the surface area of like a typical HVAC system.